Just then was Seattle native Soundgarden with My Wave. Chris Cornell was most definitely one of the best frontmen to ever do it. And At the Top, released in 1993 on the album Sound as Ever, that was You Am I with Berlin Chair. You were just mentioning there off air, man, that you'd seen Soundgarden live?
Yeah, we did. So when I got to Melbourne, I lived in a friend's with their parents out in Vermont, which is out in the eastern suburbs, out near where Hawks train, actually, out in Waverley. So I was living there for 12 months before I found my feet in Melbourne. And after 12 months, my best mate, Benny Harrison, was playing at Carlton. He'd come over from Tassie the same time as me, and we were looking to get into a share house together. So we did that, myself and Ben, another guy called Brad Pearce that played at Carlton, and another guy called Tony Lind. So there were 3 Carlton players and myself, and we found this place in Carlton in Barclay Street, right on the edge of the city near the Exhibition Gardens. So quickly when we moved in with Brad and Harrow, we realised we all loved the same music, and it was a great era of music to start listening to because you had all those Seattle bands, like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Screaming Trees, and obviously Soundgarden there. So we all got into that, and Soundgarden were coming out to Australia to do the Big Day Out, which was, you guys would know about that. We used to go every year, and we got tickets to their sideshow at Festival Hall, and the Big Day Out was always in January in Melbourne. It was a 40-degree day in Melbourne, stinking hot, and we went to their gig at Festival Hall, and it was like, it would have been 50 degrees in Festival Hall. Everyone is just drenched.
Everyone would have been out, surely, Richo.
Yeah, the rig was out.
You were just teetering on it, man.
And you know what? Every rig in the whole of Festival Hall was out. It was just an iconic gig because it was so hot and everyone was just so sweaty, but they were so good. And I just remember, jumping up and down to that song, My Wave, the whole album. But it was just a great time to be living in inner city Melbourne, and you could walk into the city to club shows. And the other track that we're going to play there, we did play from UMI, Sound as Ever, Berlin Chair, one of my favourite songs of all time.
And a friend of yours, Tim Rogers?
Yeah, and so we went into a gig in Melbourne, and I think it was the launch of Hi-Fi Way, which was the album after Sound as Ever. And they're currently out touring that 30th anniversary now. So that would have been, 1995. And they played a show in Melbourne at a little underground band room in Melbourne to release that album. And all us footballers were in there, and their tour manager, Sean Richards, mad footy fan, he came up and said hello to us, and he took us backstage, and we met Tim for the first time. And we probably saw UMI, 6-7 times in that space of a few years. And that song was always my favourite, Berlin Chair. It just takes me back to moving into a share house with a group of mates that all loved the same music and all played footy, but it was our escape from footy, just going to shows like that. And just a terrific song.
Are there any other touring acts that you came across in that share house time that you and your housemates went to?
Yeah, many. If you want a big
standouts,
a big name one, I remember going to a show at Rod Laver Arena, Pearl Jam, 1995 again, and it was a Thursday night gig at Rod Laver, and I'll never forget it because it would have been the last time there was a gig at Rod Laver where they had seats on the floor for a big rock show like that. Well, once Pearl Jam started playing, we were literally front row up against the barricade, and mate, we turned around and everyone was ripping up the seats and passing them back. So by the end of the night, all of the plastic seats were sitting in a heap at the back of the floor, right? At Rod, if you've been to a gig there on the floor, you just wouldn't do it now, with the mosh. So we were front row, and a Melbourne band, the Meanies, played before them, real hardcore Melbourne punk band, the Meanies, who we'd become mates with as well.
The Moonies, you said?
The Meanies.
The Meanies.
And Richo, what were the moshes like back then?
Well,
obviously, I've been to a few, I've been to lots of different gigs, and I think rock music.
And it's probably safer now because of episodes that have happened over the years with some tragedies in the mosh and that, with the
stampedes and stuff.
But back then it was hectic when all the seats were playing pushed back. But I remember getting home from that show after watching the Meanies, who got the crowd going, listened to some Meanies. And then, Pearl Jam came on, and it was at the peak of their power. I reckon their third album, Vitalogy, had just been released. And, you know, it was just a powerful show, and we loved that band, and we're a couple of metres from Eddie Vedder. I remember getting home from that show and we felt like we'd played a game of footy. We were knackered, right? And we were all playing that weekend, right?
Yeah. After the Thursday
night. Thursday night gig. And it was like, how are we going to get up for the game on Saturday? But we did, you know, we're 20 years of age. So, that was a great show.
Yeah, man. And so you the Meanies, you touched on punk music, and in the playlist we've seen there's a bit more punk in there. How was your navigation to punk? Because it very much is an underground scene. Yeah,
well, probably started with the Meanies.
Yep.
Because at that stage,
big Melbourne band at that time. Yeah,
they had an underground following, but they certainly weren't mainstream. But I remember watching them that night and going, shit, what's this music, you know? And it's pretty hardcore if you have a listen to it. And so from that moment on, I started getting into more punk music as we went along. But yeah, in the mid-90s, it was more that Seattle sound, and then Aussie bands like Powderfinger and UMI and all those sort of bands. But yeah, there were a couple of memorable shows, the Soundgarden at Festival Hall, Pearl Jam at Rod Laver, and that UMI show in the city.
I reckon it's absolute perfect timing to go listen to a track by the Meanies now, man.